Friday morning, you're very welcome along to OTB AM. It's the Friday lads with you, myself and Owen Shane, and a pretty regular fixture now. I'm delighted to say Kenny Cunningham is back with us. Good morning to you, Kenny.
Morning, lads.
Oh, well?
Oh, well, yeah, geez, roasting out in it.
It's boiling, but it's nice and chilly in here. It's almost too frosty.
Freezing.
Yeah.
It's literally extreme temperatures.
We've lots of good stuff to get to, lads. The group stages of the World Cup have come to an end. We're not sure what we're going to do with ourselves today. It's a bit of a sort of odd feeling, actually, in a lot of ways. I'm sort of what's brought into sharp focus for me over the last while is that I'm sort of welcoming now of this like 128 team World Cup or whatever it is we're going to have. I just can't see enough of these crap teams playing each other. It turns out I'm looking forward to it. But we're going to get to all of that in a minute. First of all, buses, Kenny. Let's talk about buses.
I thought I'd been done to death before we came on air.
I do have to apologise that we didn't get you a taxi this morning, by the way. That was...
No apologies.
We were forced to slum it.
I'm not slumming it. I don't consider it slumming.
We did offer you a bus, but
no.
You declined. There was a couple of issues on the bus.
Yeah, no, you mentioned it this morning, didn't you? I've observed it a few times when I've been getting the bus with my mas into town, just the etiquette at the bus stop in terms of actually getting on the bus. Not getting on the bus, but in terms of the queuing system.
There is no queuing system.
Yeah, but people naturally try to do the right thing, don't they? Or the majority of people do. But this morning was like, I wouldn't say it was mayhem, because generally people are reasonably polite and try and, work around the type thing, but it's
I think it's like a microcosm of human nature. I genuinely mean this, that you're queuing up for the bus and exactly like you were saying, the vast majority of people are happy to understand that here's where I'm at in the queue and that's the order I'll get onto the bus.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take too many. It might only take a group of 10 if 2 are suddenly deciding I'm skipping the queue here and I'm off this direction. Mayhem breaks out, and it's every man and woman for themselves.
Yeah, it just takes one, doesn't it? Because at my mas it's a little bit different, because some people actually won't go directly to the bus stop. They'll stand at the corner, like a bit of a raised area overlooking the bus stop.
To see if the bus is
some
coming.
ways away. Yeah, you're a little bit sheltered there, I think. And not this morning, obviously, with the sun, but I think when the rain's lashing in, you're sheltered there a little bit. So as I approach these people, I think, well, are they actually technically before me? Well, they are. They're waiting for the bus. They're not at the bus stop.
I think if they're not at the bus stop...
How far are you away from the bus stop when technically you're waiting for the bus?
No, you got to be at the bus.
Within 20, 30 yards of the bus stop, within 100 yards. So I'm waiting for these people are walking across the road. I'm thinking, well, I've got to wait for these people to come and get on the bus before me. But it can, like Adrian says, only takes 1 or 2 whoosh.
Well, the thing
on
is,
the bus and that's it.
They might have a telepathic understanding with the bus driver, kind of like a holding midfielder and an advanced playmaker, kind of knowing that the bus might overshoot the bus stop.
Oh, that frequently happens. That's actually one of the most... We haven't even considered that. No, it's not always. It's not always. There's a bus stop that I get a bus from fairly regularly, and frequently, if I'm there first, I'll perch myself in the area I think the bus is going to stop. Let's say I get 6 people behind me, and then the bus stops at person number 6. I'm like, do you not understand? I was like... There's a lot of bad etiquette when it comes to getting on the bus.
Bus drivers do that deliberately just to wind people up. Do you reckon that kind of makes their day interesting?
Yeah. Just mix it up a small bit.
There's a common trait, and you often get it as well, with like the bus driver is close the door and is about to pull off, but there's traffic, and then somebody comes along and there's like knocking at the door, and the bus driver just
stares straight ahead.
I hate to see that.
Yeah. But it's just like it's misery that you can sometimes relate with to a certain extent. But it is a dick move. The other kind of moral dilemma myself and Kenny were chatting about before coming on air was the situation with a full bus. If you're on a full bus and you're sitting on the outside of a 2-seater and everybody, bar you and the other person inside you, gets off the bus, do you then leave the person beside you to go grab a 2-seater for yourself? I did that
last week, yeah.
But imagine what the person on the inside is feeling.
Yeah.
They're feeling
That's borderline
happy
rude.
days.
They're feeling, what's wrong with me?
What's
wrong with me?
They're thinking, this is great, I've got a whole 2-seater to myself now.
I think you're hurt.
No, I did that exact thing last week, but I did it because I was sitting... It wasn't the entire bus that got off, and it wasn't that dramatic, but most of the bus got off, and the 2-seater came free, and we were sitting on the side, me and this random person, where the sun was coming in, and then the other side was shaded, so I thought, well, I'm going to go over here. So, I mean, you're not really going to sit that out.
So there's a logical reason. Saying there was a logical reason.
You're not going to hurt some. You're not in your head thinking, in your mind thinking, oh, I might hurt this person's feeling by hanging around here.
Don't get me wrong. I think you're glad to see. You're probably glad to see you move. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I think deep down there's that little bit of guilt. A little bit of hurt.
Guilt.
Not guilt from his point of view, but the other person's point of view. A little bit of hurt.
There's a period of there's a bit of introspection going on.
Yeah,
it's like, what have I done?
Yeah.
On the queuing thing, the solution that I have is that when you go to the butcher or the baker's, Kenny, as we frequently talk about when you're in, and there's a little ticket machine, and you pull a little ticket. It's got an odd sort of a shaped ticket. You pull your ticket out, and it's like number 9, a little bit of a curve. It's a funny ticket you don't really see anywhere else. You pull your ticket, and that signifies that I am next in the queue. Why couldn't we just do that for buses?
Yeah, because it would cost a couple of million.
Owen's made that point. It made a very good counter argument.
You would have more bus strikes. It would cost.
But at least there'd be less internal seating. There'd be less internal seating. It'd be better for everybody's mental health.
It wouldn't be really. It wouldn't.
Or some sort of a digital system. There must be some sort of a system of saying, I'm this number in the queue for this bus. I've been here for 10 minutes. You've just arrived, but somehow you're getting on the bus ahead of me.
As long as everybody gets on the bus, I think everybody sucks it up. But if you end up, you were saying, if you're locked out, if you end up not getting on the bus,
it's cutthroat.
Forced that day,
And then there's the other thing of people who get on the bus and don't give up their seat, Kenny, for somebody who might be.
Well, that happened today to me. What is the actual cut-off point? A lady got on there. I was sat down on the bottom about halfway. I saw her come down. I'd say she was about maybe mid-50s, but very sprightly. Had a little bag on her back, and I looked at her. My natural reaction was, do you want to sit down? But I've had this before. I've been bitten before. Excuse me, would you like to? Sorry, what? I've had the old kind of dagger. Excuse me.
What do you say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I hesitated and didn't. But again, that guilt. But again, had that little bit of guilt as well. But then, how long do you leave it? Then she turned her back at me, and I thought,
if you don't do it straight away, it
has to be that instantaneous eye contact. You can't be following them around the bus, pulling them. Look, you want to
make room,
wrestle them into the seat.
I find that I've noticed that the older people get, the more deliberate they are about asking. I've seen older people get on buses and literally walk over to a seat and point at it. I'm having that seat.
And
at that point, I think that's right. You probably get to an age where you're like, I couldn't care less. I want to sit down. Get out of it. I think it's.
I'm almost at that. I think I'm almost at that age.
The same people who'd leave a 2-seater when the rest of the bus is free because they don't give a damn about the other person's feelings inside them.
Yeah, that tells you a lot about the character of somebody. Very hard-nosed. An individual like that.
I think that's fair. We're gonna.
No, I'm just saying that's going to be you in whatever 20, 30 years.
One last thing.
Soon I'd say,
One last thing about buses. The back of the bus has happened to me a couple of times over the past few months. That heating system at the back of the bus, the engine.
You can't sit in the back seat.
Coming through the back seat. Surely there's some kind of insulation.
I wouldn't be good
now,
enough to sit at
the advances of modern technology just to reflect that heat back into the engine. No. Desperate, the heat coming off that. I used to have it in school.
Do you think should we get somebody in from Dublin Bus and just sit down and have a bit of a chat with them about
honest to God
stuff, what's going on?
I think it's a rather grand system.
Do you get the bus often?
Well,
yes.
How often?
Every day.
Once a day.
You got to be upstairs. You strike me as an upstairs type.
What time are you getting on the bus at?
Around 2 p.m.
Beautiful
experience. He's got experience.
I actually kind of survey the lands, which double seater will I take to myself this afternoon?
Yeah, but that's the whole point.
On this quiet
You're
time.
not getting on the bus when it's rush hour and etiquette goes out the window and human behaviour becomes a pretty disgusting thing. That's what happens at bus stops when it's busy on.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I'll check it out sometime.
Right, we're going to talk some football very shortly. Keep your comments coming in. Hashtag OTB AM. We're with you between now and 9 o'clock, and lots coming your way between now and then, or maybe even a little bit past 9, as tends to be the way of a Friday morning. We're going to get stuck into the sports pages in a minute. It'll be a chance to ask Kenny what he thought about England last night, the non-game with Belgium, as the Belgians got through as top seeds in that group. 1-0 the outcome there. General thoughts from you, Kenny, as well on the World Cup. We're at the end of the group stages, obviously at this stage, so whoever your pick was at the start, are they still your pick? We're going to put all of those meaningful questions to Kenny very shortly, so you're forewarned, and get your questions in for him as well if you have anything in relation to the World Cup or indeed about the bus. We're happy to field any questions this morning here on OTB AM. John Duggan is in Russia. He is in transit, so we are hoping to hear from John at some point.
Sleep-deprived John Duggan, apparently.
Sleep-deprived John Duggan, yeah. I don't think we're 100% sure that we are actually going to hear from him, but we'll make that promise anyway. We are. We've got the thumbs up from Tommy. It's all good. He's coming your way in about 15-20 minutes time thereabouts. We're going to have Kenny meeting Kenny, which is, I have to say, what I'm looking forward to most. Kenny's looking at me quizzically. All will be revealed.
Daglish.
All will be revealed. No, Kenny. We didn't have enough room in the graphic there, but it is actually Kenny Cunningham meeting Kenny Cunningham.
Oh,
all will be revealed a little bit later on.
Alter ego, like it.
And there hasn't been a huge amount of conversation about the football this week, the GAA that is, so we're going to get into all of that with Billy Joe Padden. That is going to be in the direction of 8:45 or thereabouts. So do stick with us. We've lots coming your way. Hashtag OTBAM, get your comments in. We're going to read out as many of them as we can. If you just want to say hello from wherever it is you are in the world, get your comments into us, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can between now and the time we leave you a little bit later in the day. So let's give you a flavour of what's going on in the back pages.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
I'm only in once a week, but it leaves all the production staff on their toes. So, and I find generally it's sort of, my capacity to fumble my way into a sting leaves everybody a little bit sweaty every morning.
It's kind of like slotting Dedrick Boyata instead of Vincent Kompany into the Belgium back three.
Oh, you got it. Kildare regret over tickets, reads the back page of the Irish Independent this morning. The county board apologising for the fact that they fought hard to have the game at St Conan's Park in Newbridge and never really gave a huge amount of consideration to the fact that Mayo season ticket holders far outnumber their own, and it seems as if there may even be 3-1 Mayo to Kildare supporters at this game in Newbridge tomorrow night. So, I mean, it's an unhappy consequence of a pretty interesting week for Kildare GAA. I mean, there hasn't been really any conversation about the game itself and the way that's going to go, and that's going to dominate our conversation with Billy Joe Padden a little bit later on. Southgate defence selection decisions after defeat sets up Colombia clash, writes Matt Law here in the Independent this morning. It was a slightly bizarre game last night that Belgium won by a beautiful Adnan Januzaj goal to 0. And as David Seaman, who I was listening to on TalkSport earlier, put it, Budland could have put a bit more dive on it. He put too much dive on it. Too much dive on it. Went at it with the wrong arm, seems to be the technical description. It sort of had me thinking about, like, the underlying point about the entire game last night, whether it was the match itself or the analysis around it or any conversation about it, was the fact that England were happy to lose it. And I wondered how much that implicated
wouldn't agree with that.
On every decision that was being made on the pitch last night.
Well, I'd agree in terms of utter devastation and from England's point of view, in terms of they've lost the game, what's coming down the road in terms of the draw as it's laid out. No, not. But in terms of how it affected their approach to the game, I don't think so. I think actually Southgate had an obligation. I think he has a professional obligation himself, and a duty almost to his players, particularly players who have come in and hadn't played previously, to approach the game in exactly the same manner. And if he hadn't have done that, if his approach had been slightly different on the training pitch, anything small detail, just in terms of even attitude, how he was kind of carrying himself, wasn't taking it any way as seriously as he had done the previous games, I think his standing would drop in the eyes of the players, and I think he would have known that. So I think he had a responsibility to approach it in exactly
they all collectively
the same way.
Not just understand or know that actually losing this game or the sort of bizarre fair play rule,
I don't
that's
think
going to see us get an
I
easier
really
route.
don't think so. You can't get into everybody's mindset, but I really don't see that. The players coming in for the first game, there's a lot of changes in that England team. I'm not saying you can't. It's easily said there's places up for grabs. Players coming in, they know that.
Yeah.
Players coming in, no, it's not really place up for grabs.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two positions. Danny Rowe was coming in, may have thought great 90 minutes potentially me starting.
Yeah.
Maybe Rashford coming in ahead of potentially starting. So one or two players may have thought an opportunity to actually play in the last 16, but other players there, the likes of Vardy coming in, Jones, Cahill, knew this was one night only. But even still, the determination they would have wanted to play well, to win the game, to have that on their CD. They played in a World Cup, they played 90 minutes in a winning team. That would absolutely override absolutely everything.
Completely. And I think when you look at somebody like Jamie Vardy, like, to say that he went out there with the possibility of losing and said that opportunity of losing looks quite attractive to me, it's just not true. That's just not the way he approaches games of football. It's the same with Eric Dyer, despite the fact that inadvertently he might have played in a way which would have allowed England to lose, but the purpose certainly wasn't to lose. I think to say that Jordan Pickford's dive was done in a manner that was deliberate to not try and catch the ball.
I'm not even saying that, right? Like, the difficculty here is that it is such to a degree, right? Because it's such an untypical game, because everything you say is obviously 100% accurate to 99.99999% of games that these players will ever play. So that's the mindset of winning at all costs and no matter what. I just think it's such an outlier of a game. Like, one thought, and we mentioned it outside, that I had was that at some point in the week, you bank the fact that England have got the most preferable route, and they would have been aware of that before they went into the game, that actually losing the game or having a worse fair play record would have resulted in a more favourable route. So that just exists. There wasn't any ambiguity about it. If this happens, if that happens, that was
you're
that was in the
thinking
bank.
ahead to the quarter-final draw.
That's
potentially.
in the bank, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, in that context, does like a Vardy or a Rashford at some point go up to Southgate? I'm not saying they would have ever openly discussed it as a team, right? Because like you say, in terms of professionalism and stuff, that would have been a bit bizarre. But at some point in the week, I think if I'm Rashford, I'm going up to Gareth Southgate at some point and I'm going, listen,
this is Adrian's weakest argument in the morning, by the way.
If I get one-on-one, I'm just saying, I think this is what I would have done. If I get one-on-one, do you want me to bang it or hit Rose Ed?
Oh, come on.
Thank you.
Come on.
Thank you. Let's leave it there.
All I'm saying is, sorry, listen to what I'm saying.
We just did.
Who the hell would actually have an argument?
That's why I
I'm not
laughed
having an
out of the
argument. I'm
studio.
saying that I would have gone to the manager. Like, I'm not saying it's up to Gareth Southgate to go, no, listen, you got to put that in the back of the net.
Can you imagine what Gareth Southgate, what your perception would be? I'm going to buy into this anyway. I shouldn't even be having this conversation. I'm going to buy into it anyway. Like, can you imagine Gareth Southgate's perception of those players, what he would have thought of those players having left the room and come to see him and say, Gaffer, do you want me to put that ball in the back of the net? Or have I got your permission to actually kick this ball
just
wide?
so we're sure, I put that away, right?
Oh, come on.
The only argument...
So, imagine
He's not being serious. He's not being serious.
I'm 100% being serious.
How much respect would you have for Marcus Rashford
Exactly.
if you even asked him that
Exactly.
question?
It's not going to happen. It's telling the centre forward not to hit the target when he could score a World Cup as well. The only argument I made to Adrian, which I think does stand up, where the manager potentially that could influence things, and he'd never admit to this, almost like in a very subliminal level, is in terms of the team that they picked, the amount of changes that both Belgium and England in particular made. Because I think if England had to win that game, top the group, to play Sweden or Switzerland in the quarterfinals, I'd hazard a guess you wouldn't have seen quite as many changes. You would have seen a number in terms of yellow cards, you would have seen a little bit of a shuffling of the pack, but as many as 8 changes, I don't think so. So if you're asking me in terms of any kind of evidence that potentially Southgate isn't devastated at the fact that they've come second in the group and potentially going to be facing Sweden or Switzerland ahead of Brazil, that would have been it. The actual amount of changes
and he doesn't bring on Harry Kane if he's chasing the game.
But he can camouflage that by saying, "Oh, players need, yellow cards. I need to get game time, cohesion with the squad. I need to make these changes." So he can kind of camouflage it in that respect and get away with it. But that's the only way. That's the only argument for me in terms of potentially.
He didn't want to win the game. That's what you're saying.
Not that he didn't want to win the game, but there's not utter devastation that they haven't, and they've come second in the group.
The whole spectra of this changed yesterday at 5 o'clock when Colombia came second in Group H. It changed everything. At that point, England and Belgium's mentality was, right, we need to top this group, because you can forget about the quarterfinals, because we've got a hell of a battle on our hands if we don't get Japan in the last 16. Japan, the weakest side in the last 16. And that was the reward for finishing top. It was a free pass into the quarterfinals.
I know, but
it
then
changed everything when Colombia finished second.
And actually, look, I think that's actually a valid point. We have a bit of a look at the schedule there on the screen. But yeah, I think that's the point. Like, that it is that actually Belgium have the easier game up next, but obviously England are sort of way ahead of themselves. They're not even considering that game. It's like, well, when we beat Colombia, and Colombia are a pretty good team, obviously. But
a quarter-final result for England is a good result. Yeah. And getting Japan in the last 16 would have been a golden ticket for Gareth Southgate to go home to England and say, listen, we had a good World Cup. Yeah. Plus, you get a free hit at Brazil.
Yeah, I would have liked it. I must admit, I would have liked it in England as a standalone game, England v Brazil, because I still think, and I know it was a poor result last night, but they're still a dangerous team. They get the strongest team out, as we spoke about before. The energy, the pace they have high up the pitch. Particularly, Brazil have had their moments defensive in the competition already, where you look at them and think, yeah, you can get at them. Not particularly across the defensive line, but the protection they have in front. I'm not a big, massive fan of Casemiro and that holding midfield position. How he's in there ahead of Fernandinho, I don't know. Fernandinho for me is head and shoulders above him in terms of the quality of his defending, reading danger, mobility, quick over the ground. And as well as that, Casemiro, he's got Coutinho and Paulino ahead of him, who again only want to go one way, head up the other end of the pitch. So for me, the type of players that England have in forward areas of the pitch, the likes of Dele Alli, Lingard, obviously Harry Kane, not so much pace, but Sterling and a bit of pace down the flanks. Even Brazil, as good as they are going forward, England, for me, a dangerous side to
caught on
cause
the
them
hop,
problems. Yeah. So in some ways, I think it's a little bit of a shame if they don't get them, which they won't now in the quarterfinals.
I did enjoy the ITV reporter after the game saying to Gareth Southgate, Gareth, did you know that now by having lost this game, you are now going to have the easier route if we were to progress to the later stages? Like as if this was new news to Gareth Southgate, who, to be fair to him, held a very sort of stern face to seriously address the question.
Yeah, but what we haven't talked about is kind of a little bit of a negative mindset, because over in the UK, and it's been building a little bit of positivity, particularly off the back of Panama, has really been a lot of talk now, a lot of feel good around the team, even the players themselves, the confidence amongst the players, and they haven't had a bump of the road as yet. Two good wins, scoring a lot of goals, against substandard opposition, but even still, the atmosphere is great. The team, it's all been good. It hasn't been one kind of negative spin. Now all of a sudden, boom, a bump on the road. They've lost. Whether in terms of that little bit of maybe self-doubt, there'll be a couple of little negative headlines now in the UK papers this morning. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of affects.
Oh no, they're all
dynamic within the
I saw some
squad.
of the flashes from some of the UK papers. I don't know if some of them are reflected here, but they're all like, "God, this is well done, England. Where the road is clear. Let's go for it." They're all sort of seeing the path.
Oh, so no, in terms of the performance,
so take a quick flip at some
I'll be very surprised. There's not a little bit of criticism in terms of maybe the manner of the.
I think they've written it off. I think they're just writing it off as a listen. We weren't really trying a leg here. Still think this was a clever idea, Gareth.
There you go. That's
Daily Mail, so to be fair, this is backing up your point, Kenny.
Cheers, Adrian. Thanks for that. Just shove yourself
Second
under the bus
best,
there.
asks the Sun.
This is what I'm talking about. So you're going to get this. This was always
well played, lads. Here we go. Come on.
That sarcasm, heavy sarcasm
no.
there, Adrian.
The Sun
Heavy
do
sarcasm.
not do sarcasm, Kenny. Come on, they beat you over the head with the bloody obvious.
Lucky lose. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Pass to the semis, Jesus.
This way
come
to
on.
the final. Here we go. That's what I was getting at. There we go. That's the one.
That's more
This way to
delusional than the
final.
Panama reaction. Way more delusional. To say that this Colombia game is just a complete
there won't
write-off.
be.
It's absolute nonsense.
Oh no, there won't be. Oh no, I promise you, there will be some argument over in the UK papers this morning in terms of big reality check here now. We've been getting a little bit carried away. Let's come back down to earth now in terms of.
Doesn't sound like it
being
from those
realistic.
headlines.
Yeah, but that's just agents being selected.
Let's forget about those UK papers at 8:10. And this Friday morning, let's look at the Examiner, where they couldn't care less about the World Cup. That's not quite true. They've got a celebratory Adrian and Eoin here at the top, but it is a picture of Cork star Fitzgibbon ahead of the Munster hurling final against Clare at Semple Stadium this Sunday, and he's feeling less pressure there. So a lot of good GAA stuff in the Examiner this morning, which doesn't apply across a lot of the papers today, including in the Irish Times. There's not a huge amount. There's a little bit on the back. There's nothing at all about the football qualifiers, incredibly, in the Irish Times that I can find anyway. It's dominated by the World Cup in the front here, and the putting a lot of dive on it, as you can see there, that we mentioned a bit earlier on. Jordan Pickford getting himself across there with, many feel, the wrong arm. Yanis settles battle of the B teams as Southgate rolls the dice. And Mary Hannigan's always interesting take, the view from the couch. England win, but are they happy? It's all relative in theory. Some good stuff there, and analysing all the various pundits across ITV, RTE and the BBC. Next up, we are going to the Times Ireland edition to have a little look there again. Colombia promise English a fight to the death, as we see Marwan Fellaini's hair in full flight. That was from the game, reflection of the game yesterday. That's the Times Ireland edition. The Irish News, meanwhile, this is a couple of Cavan players that were McVitie and one other that were Moyna, that were had their red cards rescinded and are available to play in the qualifiers this weekend. Criticism of Ulster is unfair, says Midcleaner. This is the obviously criticism of the general sort of play of Ulster football on, that it's wide of the mark.
Yeah, but like just on the suspensions.
Yeah.
Like this is the second week in a row where, because of the fact where there's been a huge brawl, players are getting rewarded for the added violence. And what I mean by that is, were McVitie and Moyna singled out for two-man brawls, or the two of them and two down players, the suspension would have been upheld. But because we've got whatever grainy footage, one camera at the game, and because it was an all-out mass brawl involving 20-plus players and members of staff,
Yeah.
it therefore meant that the suspension couldn't be followed through, which is a complete paradox. And I'm not saying that McVitie and Moyna are in the wrong here. By all means, they could have easily got off. But the Armagh players getting off last week before their minor or their under-20 final was an absolute disgrace. And those scenes in the Cavan and Down game, they almost seemed placid because we'd all got conditioned to watching that Armagh Tyrone under 20s, like the disgusting nature of that brawl. And last week, like you see Gerard McKiernan going up to a down player and rubbing it right in his face after he's kicked a winning point or something, after they've won the game, and that kicks the whole thing off. It was Cavan's fault that this brawl ensued, and they got 2 players suspended, which was getting their comeuppance for rubbing a player's face in it at the end. Now granted, that down fellow was probably saying stuff to Gerard McKiernan during the game, but they got their comeuppance, Cavan, and now they're after getting off. And granted, I'm coming back to the point here that McVitie and Moyna may well not have been in the wrong. It's very hard to make any kind of distinction from the video footage that might have been at the hand of the CHC here. But it's just another kind of poor attempt to try and point the way to the GAA cleaning up the act in terms of these brawls, in terms of some of the scenes we're seeing. And you don't want to tar Ulster with the same brush, but ultimately the 2 biggest brawls we've seen this summer have involved 4 different Ulster counties.
Bit like VAR, they just need to stand over their decision sometimes and say, actually, that was the right call, and
sometimes injustice needs to be carried out, and maybe it wasn't injustice, maybe it was injustice for McVitie and Moyna to get banned, but maybe the rest of Ulster wakes up and says, listen, if anybody gets involved, 2 of our best players could get suspended, even if they're just milling around the brawl and not actually pulling any punches. You know, like I don't know, but it's fairly demoralising from this standpoint. We
are coming to VAR later on, Kenny, by the way.
Oh no, I'll be gone. I'll be down Grafton Street. I'll be down Grafton Street then. I'll be having a coffee.
Finally, for me, Racing Post, second preference is their reflections on England's defeat to Belgium at the World Cup yesterday. England in the softer half as Belgian backups triumph. Owen.
The front page of the Herald sports section is Jan de Man for Belgium. England's second string beaten and settled for runners-up prize of last 16 tie against Colombia. Just a quick Kieran Whelan update, as always, on a Friday. This week, his column says, based on awesome show in Cork, I think the Kingdom will be champs. The Dubs have tapped into cute whoerism this morning, and Kieran Whelan predicting Kerry for the All-Ireland. So when Dublin do win the All-Ireland in September, we can point back to Kieran Whelan's column there. The back page of the Mirror is Easy Street. England's second string failed Belgium test, but now find themselves in the better half of the draw. While on the back page of the Star this morning, it is second best. Woeful England, lucky losers. And you've got Osei Can Roo C. That's Wayne Rooney there in his good DC one. United. It is very good in his DC United kit. And no Dubs plan. Kieran Cunningham here writing that there's no plans in place to move Dublin out of Croke Park for one of their Super 8s fixtures. Dublin, of course, playing 2 games in Croke Park as it stands, despite the fact that their game against Donegal is set for a neutral venue. The neutral venue will be Croke Park. The back page of the Sun is second best. Gareth says momentum is still there. England 0, Belgium 1. And then finally to a couple of the English the UK broadsheets we've seen. The tabloids. The Guardian is second best. England to face Colombia in the last 16 and hope it proves to be easier half of the draw. And we can bring you the Guardian, or the Telegraph rather. Bitter, momentum lost as Southgate's B team, some to defeat, final group match, and sweet. Beat Colombia, then Sweden or Switzerland, and a semi-final awaits. Big ifs.
Yeah, it was a dive of beauty, to be fair, wasn't it? It was like a beautiful. Oof! What's that? What do I hear, Owen?
Could that be?
What could that music mean?
The Russian instrument that I don't
Ireland calling Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad, come in.
Lads, I'm in Moscow.
Moscow! Come in, Moscow!
Close enough.
What happened to Kaliningrad?
I flew out at 5 a.m. and I've just arrived at Red Square. I didn't sleep a wink, so you got to forgive me if I start jumbling my words or getting anything wrong, statistically, folks. But yeah, we have to keep moving on this World Cup show.
Wow.
Keep moving. A lot going on.
Sleep has been at a premium, is what you're saying?
Yeah, but we're at the Robinson Crusoe phase of the journey. I'm actually exactly around at halfway now. So no, that's if you can't embrace the adventure, you shouldn't be here. So.
Very good.
Back in Moscow now and looking forward to the 2 last 16 games, which I'm going to here. Spain against Russia on Sunday and then Colombia, England on Tuesday. So
you were at England-Belgium last night. It sort of seemed to me in the first half there was a little bit of booing. I know this had appeared up at one of the other games. Maybe it was the Japan game. There was a bit of booing from, I think, a lot of the Russian supporters in terms of the maybe effort that was put in by both sides. Was there some booing last night, or how did that performance go down?
Yeah, it was a lot of booing, Adrian. The other game that I saw that was France-Denmark in Moscow here. The more the tournament has gone on, the more Russian fans I've seen. Maybe they're embracing it more. Maybe that other fans have gone home, because I saw a lot of Colombians and Brazilians at early games in the first week. But yeah, a lot of booing at halftime, justified. The first half was for a World Cup. But that's what happens when you have Gareth Southgate making 8 changes and Roberto Martinez making 9 changes. And yeah, the booing subsided then because the game got a little bit better. But it has been a feature. A lot of Russian fans just making Russia chants kind of sporadically during the game. And England were there, but they weren't there that plentifully. There was a 33,000 capacity stadium. I'd say probably about 7,000-8,000 England fans there. A lot of Belgian fans as well, but not a takeover of a stadium as you might expect from England.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily a full-blooded affair either, was it? Like, I mean, it was... we've been discussing, and you've mentioned it yourself, all the changes that were made. It was a bit of a look at, if we lose this one, we lose it, and so what? It was sort of 70-75% effort maybe from both teams.
Yeah, it was, as Roberto Martinez called it, a celebration of football. And I'd say he probably didn't want to finish first. They got 2 early bookings, which was interesting, both for fouls of Danny Rose, Tielemans, and Donker. But then Adnan Januzaj, who once nearly could have played for England. There was so much hype around him when he was at the early stages of his Manchester United career. He's now at Real Sociedad, comes out and turns Danny Rose inside out like the washing, and then plants one into the top corner. And Marcus Rashford had a one-on-one chance about 66 minutes into the game, blew it. But Belgium's reserves, if you were going to call it the battle of the reserves, were better than England's reserves. Fellaini put himself about, didn't do too badly. Dembele is always an assured player in the centre of the park. Batshuayi, we all know that he smashed the ball off the post and into his face after the goal was scored. That was quite humorous. Vermaelen started from the outset. Would he be in line to maybe challenge Boyata for a place in the last 16? Company came on with about 15 minutes to go. That suggests to me he's probably not fully fit. And I think what's happened is, in this world now we live in, lads, where everything is about the instant. So England are going to win the World Cup and the hype is massive, and now it's all these question marks now about Gareth Southgate's team selection, and it's a gamble, and will the gamble pay off? And we'll only know how much of an impact the Belgium game will mean after the Colombia game. So already, like, you can hear you can hear not the knives being sharpened, but you can hear people going to the kitchen. Yeah. After he made 8 changes when he's probably expected to make 4 or 5.
Our sponsorship of OTB AM with Screwfix.ie is so good that we got a handyman to turn up in the background of John's shot there and get to work. So that's all product placement, John. Don't worry about it. You just carry on. I did wonder, just on that note, Kenny, while we're discussing England, if in terms of changes, like, it was because they weren't playing full-blooded, because there were so many changes that were made, and so in terms of the round of 16, I wondered if Gareth Southgate is minded to make any changes from what he's seen last night. No, you've mentioned Danny Rose already, and he might be the obvious one maybe to come in for Ashley Young, but what's your sense of, of the evidence last night? Are there obvious changes?
Yeah, well, I spoke to you last night. I was actually watching the game last night, but I wasn't watching the game because I was in a pub with a bit of family and friends, and some family I hadn't seen for quite some time, so that's an absolute impossible feat to try and watch a game of football and they can talk as well. So yeah, so I shouldn't really be talking in too much detail in terms of the game last night, but in terms of going forward, Southgate obviously will revert to the previous team. I still feel, having watched the first 2 games, as much as they dominated both games, I still feel as if their problems will be kind of in defensive areas of the pitch. Got some great ball playing defenders, Stones, Harry Maguire, Kyle Walker to an extent, but I still think Walker would potentially be a liability. I don't think he's a great defender, very rash, makes poor decisions at times. The penalty of the first game is a good example of that. Got himself tied up in knots when the cross came into the box. Harry Maguire is a wonderful footballer going forward, probably the most accomplished defender in possession of football, but I think he's a little bit slow on the turn as well. I think if you get him up the pitch and get balls down the side of him, potentially you can get at England as well. So the left side of their team, for me, the combination of Young and potentially Maguire could be a problem. That's why I was an advocate of Rose coming into the team, but he hasn't had a huge amount of game time, Danny Rose. He did make a mistake for the goal last night. Got himself, his body position again was poor when Januzaj just kind of threw his shape a little bit at him. So that'd be the only position for me, maybe that left wing back position. I think Sterling will start again with Vardy up front. And it was interesting, prior to the tournament starting, there was a kind of an understanding that when the tough games came around, Southgate would revert to an orthodox midfield to 2 defensively minded midfield players, predominantly Dorian Henderson, and play with a number 10. And one of his number 8s, Ali or Lingard, would drop out. But I just feel as if after the back of the first 2 games and the kind of sounds coming from Southgate, he's going to stick with a more adventurous approach one holding midfielder.
Henderson.
Yeah, without a doubt, Henderson, and the two number 8s in advance. I think he feels they're more cohesive, better passing angles and carry more of an attacking threat. So that'd be interesting. I expect to actually stick with that for the game against Colombia. But in terms of personnel, just the potential changes that I spoke about, but I'm really interested defensively how England stand up, because for me it's not the obvious weakness in the team, but if there is a chink, and there is, it's across that defensive line if they have to defend for significant periods of the game. And I think this Colombia team have enough of the likes of James operating in deeper areas. Falcao's moving up front.
A fitness issue, I think. James, we wait to see.
Yeah, I hope he gets on the pitch. Technically, he's a very good player. He can break the lines with his passing as well, which could potentially hurt England. So it'll be a really good test for England this against Colombia. I'm looking forward to it.
Anybody you saw, John, that stood out for you that you thought actually could be in with a squeak to play against Colombia?
Yeah, I concur with Kenny, Danny Rose. Apart from the goal, I thought Danny Rose played well, especially in the first half, and he's the only player really I could see making any impact in terms of getting into the first 11. I think Marcus Rashford's chance evaporated last night. I think Raheem Sterling has to start. I think if Raheem Sterling missed that chance, there'd be probably a week of publicity about it. And I think he's going to play 3-5-2. I thought Dyer and Delph did not impose themselves in the game at all. Dyer at one stage just giving the ball straight to the Belgians. So once again, I think he's going to stick with that 3-5-2. James' injury is pretty bad, according to Peckerman, the Colombian coach, and that is a huge. That could turn the tide.
Yeah.
James is the heartbeat of the Colombian team, and they got away with it yesterday against Senegal. Yerry Mina again turning up and scoring. They're good in the boxes, Colombia. The midfield, without James, I'm not so sure, and I think England could get some purchase there. But in terms of who could come into the team, only Danny Rose, the only player I could see. I think Southgate will do the 3-5-2 again with Kane leading the line, and Kane against his club mate will be fascinating, because I'm sure they see a lot of each other in training. Davinson Sanchez against Kane on Tuesday. So it'll be a fascinating atmosphere. There's only 44,000 in the Spartak Stadium, which is a really good football stadium in terms of getting the noise going. Lots of Colombians here, of course, in Moscow, and the English will. I saw a good few of them last night, and obviously good spirits, and they will travel as well. So it'll be a fantastic atmosphere on Tuesday. But in terms of what I saw, anybody coming into the team, Danny Rose is the only one I can see.
Yeah, just on the Eric Dyer situation there, it's a very, very odd situation. Like, I think you're wearing your Spurs jersey there, actually, John, and I think they were talking about it on TV last night as well. Just the strange conundrum that they have in understanding why so many top-class managers see Eric Dyer as a top-class player. Do you think it's just a level of underperformance maybe in an England jersey, and he's actually subtly very, very good for Spurs, or what's your read on the situation?
I think Philip Egan was talking about yesterday in terms of Sami Khedira in the German team, but sometimes you can get into a position in a team where you're doing a good job, but the players around you are so good that it makes you look good. And I think that if you're in a fulcrum role in a team that Eric Dyer was supposed to be in last night, and when you're meant to be leading the way and doing that, you can get exposed. And I think that's what happened last night. Where I think at Tottenham, there's big players around, Dembele being one of them. So. I mean, like what does Jose Mourinho see in Fellaini? You know, we have all these arguments, and people you'll see it on social media the whole year round. Managers see things in certain players. Del Bosque said that about Busquets, that Busquets is the most important player in the Spanish team. So, and he's a far better player than Eric Dyer is. So, but I suppose from Eric Dyer's point of view, it's. Did he do enough to get a look in, even as Kenny was saying, in a two-man midfield and defensively, or to replace Henderson? And not a hope. And I suppose that just shows how limited, beyond 1 to 11, Gareth Southgate's team is. And the honeymoon is now fading, lads, and the honeymoon is over, and now we're into serious business.
Yeah, a couple of things before we let you away, John, because I know you are on Tuesday night, you are at that England-Colombia game in Moscow. You're also at Spain-Russia, and it's a bit of a sense here that this is where it all comes crashing down from a Russian point of view. Is that your take on it?
Absolutely. I think Spain will pass them out of the World Cup. Far superior team, even though they've had a little wobble here and there in the group stage, Spain. But look, Russia had been exposed against Uruguay. The first two games, they got a run on Saudi Arabia. They beat Egypt with Salah not fully fit. And then Uruguay did what they needed to do. They rallied well, to be fair, in the second half, but Golovin will be crucial to their chances. Obviously, they'll have the home support, but home support is not enough. And to be honest, I think if Russia go out of the last 16, they can say it was a successful World Cup. But Spain, looking at the brackets, lads, that's what fascinates me about the whole thing now. The bracket, one of the brackets is absolutely awful in terms of, you got Uruguay, France, Argentina, Portugal, Brazil, Belgium on one side of the draw, and then Spain, Croatia, Colombia, England, Switzerland, Sweden on the other side. So Spain should be licking their lips right now in terms of the draw. And of course, Croatia won't be any. Croatia will fancy their chances as well now. So this could be a fascinating. The other side of the draw could really throw up something, and I think they can get through Tuesday. And who knows?
Was it pineapple bounty?
It was a pineapple bounty that I saw in Moscow about 2 weeks ago, and I tried to get out of a vending machine and it wouldn't let me. So I thought that was my chance gone, but I saw it again last night in Kildare Airport, and I got it out of a vending machine. So I think it's the definition of going rogue. I've never seen anything like that before. Had a taste of it, and it was just it just felt so wrong that I had to throw it in.
Bounty's full stop.
I would agree with that.
I've always tasted wrong to me.
No,
you got a bounty in your selection box at Christmas with debit. You were trading it. That was your first trade, wasn't it? Your bounty bar.
Well, it's usually just in celebrations. I'm actually rubbing my hands come the 28th of December when it's just the bounties left at the bottom of the celebrations box.
Oh, you love a good bounty?
Yeah, 100%. Right. Not sure will they go for the pineapple version in celebrations boxes in future.
John, will you do us a favour and bring home back a pineapple bounty?
Please do.
I think we need a second opinion on this one. And also, will you tell that? Go on, yeah.
I'll give some impressions of Kaliningrad and off the ball. I'm going to do my diary of the last few days. Just once again, defending Neymar, because I think Neymar, I haven't seen him in the flesh. What a footballer! And I think the more urgent the World Cup gets, the better Neymar is going to play, and the less histrionics we will see. But Kaliningrad, fascinating place given the history of it. It's between Poland and Lithuania. It's an exclave of Russia. It's kind of I felt like a bit of a time warp at times, but it was an interesting place to see, and I'm glad I saw it.
Is that workman still around you there?
I don't know. I'm concentrating too much looking at the screen.
When you're done, will you tell him afterwards he can go and check out Screwfix.ie? Lots of top brands. It's a dedicated Irish site stocking over 15,000 products, John, across all sorts of ranges that I'm sure he'd make some use of.
Adrian, Barry, I think that's the best sponsorship line I've ever heard delivered in my years of working in media.
John, thanks a million. We'll speak soon. Get some sleep.
Have a good Friday.
Good luck, John Duggan there. OTB AM is live, by the way, with thanks to Screwfix.ie, in case you weren't aware, off the back of that hammer over the head plug. Championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. I mean, I misrepresented by saying 15,000. There are 20,000 quality trade products.
Wow, there's so many different products to get your teeth stuck into there.
They didn't need that lampshade. Didn't they? That lampshade in the background, didn't they? Did you notice a standing
He's in a coffee shop somewhere, isn't he?
Lampshade in the.
He's in a little cafe somewhere.
Very odd.
Red Square. You've been to Moscow. You know the ways of the world over there.
No, well, we played in Moscow, but whether I can't actually remember being out in the city. As it goes, coach, hotel, training ground, hotel. So, no, I didn't see the sights and sounds, unfortunately. We've got a treat coming your way at 8:30 on this Friday morning. We did promise Kenny Meets Kenny. It is en route. But before all of that, here's John Giles. He was on Off the Ball last night, as he is every Thursday evening. Here he is on how Ireland would have got on if we'd qualified for the 2018 World Cup.
Well, it's difficult to know, Ned, but what I'd say is that the teams that have played in Mexico and the smaller teams that you mentioned actually have passed the ball very well. Now, we haven't experienced that in the Irish international team. Definitely not. Now, whether they would go if they qualified, well, maybe if we'd have played a bit more football, we would have qualified. So therefore, we'd be playing football. Yeah. But the way we played in the qualifying games, I don't think we would have been mapped in this particular World Cup. I don't think we would have been mapped.
We just wouldn't have been able to ask enough questions.
Well, we wouldn't be playing in the way we haven't played in all the matches that we played in the qualifying rounds, the way these teams are playing in the finals. We just didn't do it. These teams have all passed the ball well. They really passed the ball well. We haven't done that at all. So I can't see how we're suddenly going to be able to do it in the World Cup.
That's what I'm wondering. And heading on into the next qualification campaign, is it a concern when we are looking at teams, and quite often people look at a 32-team World Cup and think there's 10 teams that just about deserve to be there, that they still seem to have players of a technical ability who can get it down at the highest level and pass it around against good opposition? Yeah, well, we don't seem to see that too often.
Well, we don't see it because I don't think we try to do it. I mean, why should our players be any worse than some of the players that we see from countries as small as ours and wouldn't be mapped in the world? You know, I think if the attitude is right and it's encouraged to do, then I think we can do it as well as these other teams can do it.
Yeah.
All right, it's 8:30, just gone it on this Friday morning. You're welcome back to OTB AM. Keep your comments coming in. We're going to get those through to you over the next little bit. It's Owen, it's Kenny, and I'm delighted to say Risteard Cooper has joined us in the studio. Welcome back.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
All well?
Oh, tremendous. Yeah. I've been keeping my beady eye on things.
Yeah. Very much so, by all accounts, and doing great work.
Thanks very much.
What we're seeing.
Yeah.
We've been discussing England quite a bit here this morning. It tends to, I mean, we are pretty obsessed when we're not in these tournaments ourselves with however England are going to get on, and probably no different for us here this morning.
I know the focus shifts very much, doesn't it, when it's England or when Ireland aren't in it.
Yeah. But a bit more of a sense that we're kind of actually, I don't know if everybody else feels
it's a natural thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you think for obvious reasons, it shifts to England, doesn't it?
But is there a sense of, I kind of have a sense of, I'm actually okay with England doing well in this tournament, which I can't really remember having before. Right?
Yeah, well, they seem like a nice bunch of lads, don't they? I mean, that's, the players seem to be like a nice bunch of lads and all that. And I mean, I suppose it's always that thing. It's always a bit of a, it's a bit of a dilemma, I think, for a lot of Irish people who kind of would pride themselves on, how Irish they are and how anti-English they are, but then they support their club teams.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a strange.
I think it's changed. I think you're right, though, Adrian. You have sensed that little bit of a transition there over the past couple of years. You don't really get that being around Dublin. You probably know more than me in terms of that real kind of rah, bloody English, all that type of thing. I haven't detected too much of that a couple of the last major tournaments, particularly going into this one. But
it's usually been aimed at the media anyway. I think the English media, right. And they still, they're still at it. I mean, Piers Morgan saying, if England can't be in Colombia, dot. If England can't be Colombia, what? Like, I mean, to me, it's Colombia is a tough assignment.
But you are right, but that's the opinion of one pair high profile media looking to kind of stoke it up. But you talk to people, obviously I live in London, you talk to English people wherever they are, what's your fancy English chance? Oh, don't know. It'll be Colombia, got some good players. Oh, I'm not too sure. There will be a lot of uncertainty, but no big bravado from the general public over in England in terms of how we're going to do. We're going to win the competition. Like you're saying, it is very much media driven. These type.
Well, there was one bizarre moment last night after the game. I was sort of flicking. I'm doing this thing of flicking around between all the channels, trying to consume as much of the egetry that's ultimately going on any given channel at any given time. And at one point, I stumble into what was one of the best things I've ever stumbled into last night. It was on, I don't know, was it ITV4 or one of these? Was it actually maybe just ITV?
Main ITV, yeah.
Piers Morgan, Pamela Anderson, Jeremy Corbyn, Danny Dyer, Harry Redknapp.
I love Ireland.
What a cocktail.
It was incredible. Actually, Danny Dyer, I hadn't realised at the time, but the Danny Dyer clip has gone viral. We're going to just take a quick look at it here.
Who knows about Brexit?
Yeah, quite.
No one's got a clue what Brexit is, yeah? You watch Question Time, it's comedy.
Were you no clearer when Jeremy Corbyn explained
No, I ain't got a
Labour's
clue.
policy?
No one knows what it is. It's like this mad riddle that no one knows what it is, right? So what's happened to that twat David Cameron who called it on? Let's be fair.
I
think you're referring to a former Prime Minister. Yeah, but how comes he can scuttle off? He called all this on.
Yeah.
Yeah?
He has no regrets.
Where is he? He's in Europe, in Nice, with his trotters up. Yeah? Where is the geezer? I think he should be held accountable for it.
I think that's incorporated.
He should be held accountable for it.
It's a valid point. A lot of people do feel
twat.
I wonder how Pamela Anderson felt about that. I'd say
she hadn't, to be fair, I watched a lot of it. She hadn't a clue what was going on. She's gone out apparently with one of the French footballers, and this was the justification as to why she was in the studio to begin with.
Oh, right.
But I mean, I thought it was all, when I started watching it, I thought, this has all been recorded this morning, and it's covering a couple of different eventualities. England lose, England win. And then I started going into all these specifics, and I realised it was actually live nonsense.
She had a Why Am I Here expression.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Danny, he looks somebody who's permanently in character. I can't take him seriously. I don't know what it is. He seems as if he's permanently in character.
Not a David Cameron.
He is. It's like, I think when he's in EastEnders, just the camera's rolling all the time. You know what I mean? He's like that person. It's not like it's he
I always
has to
feel
learn.
He's playing up to that character a little bit. It's what's expected of him.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, absolutely. It's all that. Giving it all that.
England, right side of the draw. You know, obviously taking a lot of glee. The fact that Germany are out. It's all turning up Milhouse for them, isn't it?
It is. I noticed Gary Neville as well on ITV talking about they were going into the specifics of Jordan Pickford and what he was doing technically for Januzaj's goal. And Gary Neville said, it's just all wrong. It's all totally wrong. You just look at him and it's all like he's jumping with his feet in the air. And you're thinking, have you ever, how would you manage to jump? But nobody questioned it. No. He's the main man, obviously, on that panel. There's no arguing with Gary.
Yeah. And, there's too many people on that panel.
Yeah, they can't get a word in. Yeah, I agree.
There's four.
I actually think the desk. You see the desk. I think they built the desk. They didn't even realise themselves. They built the desk too small, and there's like somebody always hanging out the edge of it.
Yeah, usually Ian Wright, I think. Yeah. You definitely can't get a word in edgeways. But yeah,
many cooks.
Too many cooks. But it's so they obviously get their 30 seconds over their clip, and that's all. They're not really supposed to talk beyond that, although Gary Neville seems to break that mold.
Yeah, he does.
They I actually just on the Germany game, I met Didi Hamann up in RTE before the match, and he was having a cigarette, outside, where you can actually have a smoke. And he seems to be constantly smoking, but he was outside, and so I said, "Do you how are you?" And he said, "Oh yeah, how are you?" And so I mentioned, the VAR, and but he's like, "Oh, it's absolutely. Just don't talk to me about it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Hates it. Absolutely hates it."
Okay, still.
So afterwards, I met him. And I said to him, "Don't mention the VAR," and that actually he did laugh. I wasn't sure. How he responded to that.
I
don't think he actually understood what I meant.
He's got a good sense of humour, Didi.
I'm not sure was he a Faulty Towers person.
Yeah. How does he take to the impression? How much awareness does he? I don't know how much these guys.
I don't think he. See, Barry does them when we're doing sketches, and so he does them with it's a kind of a visual impression the way Barry does them. But he seems to be fine. I don't think he. I think you're right. He does have a good sense of humour, but he's not bothered. Like there's some people
I thought it was on that.
Might get bothered about at this particular moment in time. But at the same time, we got to move on. You got to park it and move on. It doesn't bother me at this particular moment in time.
Well, after the game last night, my mum was watching. She said, "I thought they were taking you out." It was Keith Andrews.
Oh right, yeah.
I was in the kitchen. I could hear it.
Yeah.
I thought they said, "Why are they taking off Ken on the after match?" Lads, she thought it was the similarities between the way Keith
and the hairstyle obviously was.
That's a week. Come on, lay yourself down there.
No, when you see
know it better than me. The pitch, you know it better than me.
The wig that we use for Keith Andrews. I mean, I look like somebody from The Cure. Like I look like Ross Smith from The Cure. But it's hard to exaggerate his hair. He has an incredible set of hair.
He's got grey hair.
Grey hair to be fair. But even when he cuts it short, like even if it's like a crew cut for you and me, it still seems to be kind of like
fulsome.
Yeah, fulsome.
It's a joy for you. I bet you were delighted when you saw he was on the panel for the summer, weren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. I think he's very good. Honestly, I do. I think he's very composed and because honestly, I don't think it's easy to slot in there with certain people who only give you a certain slot, give you a certain amount of time, and if they don't take to you, they make your life very, very difficult. They can do.
The lads are very polished, but Keith's got a lot of experience. I think it looked very good, the studio out in RTA, just visually looking at the studio, and even the couple of lads, Dunny came in, Duffers, Kevin Doyle, Shay and that, it looked really kind of fresh. I saw a couple in Dublin the other week and saw a bit of a struggling to hear what you were saying, but visually I thought it looked really good, the panel
Yeah. I think Richie's doing a great job as well. I was saying, arguably one of the best pieces of skill in the World Cup so far is witnessing Richie Sadlier dealing with a Peter Collins question. He's sort of like he controls it like a football. He sees, does anyone else want it, and and he usually knocks it into the top corner. But yeah, no, he's very good, Richie, I think, and there's a good balance there, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Because I'd be disappointed with it. I was watching a bit of the BBC and ITV over in the UK. It's been disappointment. There hasn't been anybody really that's kind of really engaged with. Very few. I'm trying to think even one offhand. I mean, Gary, you've mentioned Gary Neville. You always get a bit of meat in the bowl with Gary Neville, to be honest, in terms of tactically, he'll get stuck in there too, and he'll give you an opinion.
Roy and Martin, obviously, are on ITV. Seen bits and pieces of them.
Have they been on together?
Pieces. They were on one.
Initially, was it?
I think one initially they were on. I tell you who's very good. I've really liked. He's gone back now. Frank Lampard on the BBC, I think, is really strong. Again, kind of a lot of detail, but doesn't really throw it in your face. You know what I mean? Just a nice man that carries himself very well, and very astute in terms of what he has to say. Like a good eye for the game as well. So I've actually quite enjoyed him, but he'd probably be the exception. It's been a bit like the ITV panel is just too much.
Well, it's very hard as well, I think. For them. I mean, whatever. It's one of the things I've always thought about the RT panel is that they're not really too concerned about saying whatever they want about particularly players that are based in England, because they don't have to meet them, and they don't have to meet their agents and all that sort of stuff. So whereas BBC panel, I mean, I just think the BBC panel are, they effectively don't really get into any detail. It's all a bit of a wash.
And no real kind of debate. You don't really get that real debate. A few kind of throwaway comments and take the mick of, throwaway comments at each other, but nobody really engages.
It's a tricky one for Mark Lawrenson as well, because he's been, obviously a co-com for a long time and been on the panel for a long time, but his biggest dilemma is do I call England we or they? And he was saying,
I think there's absolutely no doubt about it. The best set pieces so far in this World Cup are from England. They've had the most results from set pieces. Absolutely no question about that.
But I mean, you're thinking, the defences they've been up against. Panama, Tunisia.
That's true. It's true.
Ranked 50, 55.
They have done the work outside. You can see, you can actually.
I wouldn't have to agree with that, Kenny.
No, I know. Yeah, I mean,
it's so important. They throw out the load of stats, goals scored, set pieces, and the whole shebang. So it is kind of relevant, and you can see it. You can see set pieces, corner kicks that actually worked on the training pitch. The Stones goal against Panama, was it?
Yeah,
it was a great goal. The free kick just dropped, flicked around the corner, headed back across.
Yeah,
you could straight away. You could see, well, that's not instinctive. That's literally being worked and executed perfectly. You know what I mean? So,
who are the England penalty takers? Do you reckon? Kane.
Oh,
they must be down for the
Kane, obviously.
Vardy, if he's on the pitch.
If he's on the pitch, Dele Alli, Lingard, all your more attack-minded players I would have thought. Raheem Sterling, I'm not too sure. He'd be one of them. You naturally think you're centre forwards, but he might be one of those centre forwards because he's not particularly good technically, not a great striker of the ball. So he'd be.
Trent Alexander-Arnold was taking one of the free kicks last time. I don't know if he's on the pitch.
The likes of Harry Maguire wouldn't surprise me in terms of Kyle Walker, even those types. Henderson would probably step up.
Jordan Henderson will miss one.
Captain.
He'll definitely miss.
Modern day Gareth Southgate, will he?
Dele Alli will try to head his, I'd say.
The big thing with watching some of the UK, they're trying to the excitement levels. It's like you've said about the sort of lower ranked teams and they're thumping them, but just trying to keep a bit of a lid almost on. Trying to get too far ahead of ourselves here almost is their biggest challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But it is, but it's the level. I mean, I mentioned this to Joe as well. The level of scrutiny the players are under at every moment in time. It's quite extraordinary. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, Kenny. But just phrase came to me. But it is and it's Sky Sports, as you know, Harry Kane has been spotted, applying sun cream to his face, increasing speculations that he may be about to sunbathe. It's that sort of level. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
But the players invite that as well, I think. The age of social media that we're in, the players really kind of engage with that and encourage it and really open themselves up to that type of thing as well. They're putting themselves out there. I think the manager's almost been it's interesting how Southgate has approached it. managers previously would have been, right, lads, that's distance between ourselves and the media.
And he's invited them all then play darts and pool and all that stuff.
Exactly. But really kind of, really trying to bring everybody together. Interesting is the approach Southgate. He's got a huge amount of plaudits now. Prior to the game last night, he could do no wrong. Really, he's absolute royalty. Gareth Southgate, but it'd be interesting if that dynamic changes. Obviously, results turn as it always does.
Kenny, what do you think of Gareth Southgate's performance? Are you sort of happy enough with how he's going along, or what do you think?
Are you asking me that?
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that at this particular moment. So I think he's a bit overrated, and I think his nose is too big.
We mentioned Harry Kane. We do want to take a clip of it's Barry Davies and it's Harry Kane. It's a great combination. Take a look.
England with one last throw of the dice, and Dele Alli with a lovely first-time ball to Sterling, who beats one and beats another and crosses the ball into Harry Kane. He's in some space. Harry Kane for England. Oh my word, he's done it. Harry Kane has won the World Cup for England, and look at his face. Just look at his face. We've bloody done it.
They will in there, I hope.
That was the end of our one of our opening sketches, I think. Yeah, Barry Davies is one of those commentators that to me is just a legend.
Absolutely.
I think he's amazing. But he's one of those commentators that can commentate on anything, any sport, and just lift it, like snooker or something.
Yeah.
And he has potted the red and is wonderfully on the black.
And it just could be,
And he's going for a 9-dart finish here.
and the whole thing gives it a sense of pathos or something. Did he ever commentate on? He must have. Match of the day.
And Cunningham with a wonderful back pass.
Another consecutive back pass. That would have been a big test. That would have been a huge test for Barry.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I must compliment you. I was watching some of the nostalgia pieces are on at the minute, and the current stuff is clearly outstanding. That's not my point, but some of the older stuff's been rerun. There was the Ireland v Holland game was on the other night.
Oh yeah, was it?
Was it Barry Davies who was doing the commentary?
It was Stuttgart. Well, what we did was we did the Ireland-England game from '88 in Stuttgart, but from an English perspective.
Yes.
Which obviously they weren't covering it at all. Actually,
it was fantastic. It was incredible. It was Barry Davies in full flow, and it was Hoddle, and Hoddle misses, and the F word follows pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they might say if they were let loose, if they were allowed to say certain things. It was good. It was good fun doing that one.
I think we're all getting a bit sort of already. The withdrawal symptoms have almost kicked in a little bit. Risteard,
I don't know what I'm driving to Clonakilty to do an après-match gig. That's all I know.
Well, that's a good way to fill your day.
Yeah.
Not cycling, driving.
No, I'm not cycling. I'm doing the Leinster Loop. Thanks, Kenny. Thanks.
He was bragging he cycled in this morning. When I tried to pin him down exactly where he'd cycled from, eventually he had to admit he'd only cycled in from Ranelagh. What are we talking?
That's after
Max, I'd say. Yeah.
All those kilometres count,
Barely got through the gears. He had to stop again.
I'll tell you, that was after a bruised backside from yesterday.
It's all downhill as well. It's all downhill from Ranelagh down here, isn't it? Grafton Street.
What do you think? We might be, if we have the graphic, we might take a quick look at get both your sort of predictions for the quarterfinals and how you see them going. We might just take a quick look at the brackets, as John was correctly referring to them earlier on. What are you thinking, lads, in terms of how these out?
I'll go. I'll let Kenny go, and then I'll disagree with him.
I'm going to have to look in the paper. I can't even see the teams. I can't even see the teams
Here,
up there.
That's Belgium against Japan.
Yeah, you've only put the flags up there. If you haven't put the names up there.
Look, have a look at that.
Is that part of the test, is it? Is that bloody hell?
Belgium, Brazil, you'd have to say.
With that, let's reference that.
But I think Uruguay, Portugal. That's a tough one to call, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would say Uruguay.
Yeah.
Personally,
I've them in the office sweep, so good call. Yeah.
I think Colombia are going to beat England.
Ooh, controversial. You think, Kenny, do you go with that?
No.
Okay.
Not having that.
No, England to win.
Okay. Sweden or Switzerland? Another one. It's hard to really.
It's sort of who cares almost.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Switzerland, I would say.
I'd like to see Sweden win that one.
I'd say that people in the north of Ireland are thinking that could have been us there, only for that refereeing decision there in November. And I can't remember what's the last one.
Brazil, Mexico. You got Brazil, Mexico, is it?
That's got to be Brazil. Spain, Russia. You'd hope Spain. Croatia, Denmark.
You'd fancy, wouldn't you?
I think Denmark could be dark horses personally, But,
Saturday's a great day. France Argentina would be a crackerjack of a game, I think.
Yeah,
And obviously
yeah.
Uruguay Portugal. That's a great swing of fixtures there.
And my great insider knowledge would lead me to predict that one of those teams will win it.
The quarterfinals. The last 16.
That's a reasonable.
I think France. I'm expecting a bit from France. They've got a couple of gears. They haven't been at their best. I'm expecting a.
Yeah.
I'm expecting.
Be good to see a
them
team
hit
that
bit of
hasn't won
form.
it before winning it, wouldn't it? I'd love to see Belgium doing it.
I actually don't go with that at all.
Yeah?
I have to say, the Greece winning the Euros, it's one of the worst outcomes that's ever happened at American
Yeah, but they
football
weren't a
tournament.
good team, Adrian.
But my point is, right, I actually want to see the best teams reach. To a point, I'm happy enough with a sort of a minnow, bit of an upset here or there in the group
best
stages.
teams reach the best team wins the competition. Adrian, it's as simple as that.
Greece,
I don't know what you
Greece,
mean by the best
Greece.
teams.
I think they were.
I don't even know what that means. The best teams.
Greece in 2000, wasn't it?
Yeah. Wasn't it? Yeah.
04.
04, yeah, 04, yeah.
2004. You just had to say that. You jumped into.
That's what I did. Yeah, 2004.
No, they
didn't let me finish. Yeah.
Give us a chance here. God, you invite people on and you don't get a chance to speak. Ridiculous. 2004.
But anyway, I'm right about everything.
I don't know.
That's the main thing.
I do also accept that.
Belgium, they have one of the strongest squads.
They seem to be clicking a little bit.
They seem to be clicking, and they seem to have two very good teams.
I mean, they've beaten England, who are clearly the other best team in the tournament as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Well,
to recommend
certainly are from their perspective.
Clonakilty tonight.
Clonakilty tonight, yeah.
Lovely part of the world.
It is, yeah. No, looking forward to that. Staying in Kinsale.
Beautiful.
Golf.
A bit of golf tomorrow morning, I'm thinking. Yeah.
Handicap these days?
Golf is my handicap.
Non-committal, dangerous.
Kenny's gotten full in on the golf in the last few months, hasn't he, Kenny?
I've just put the clubs down for a couple of years. Just the last 6 weeks or so, I've been out with Kev. We went out for a couple of rounds of golf in Dublin. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I've really missed it. Surprised how much. Just out hitting a few balls. Sun was out.
Yeah.
It's nothing better, is that?
No, it's brilliant. It's lovely to connect. I mean, I'm one of those players that I actually get better the less I play because I don't put any pressure on it. If you're playing regularly, you kind of your expectation levels rise. But I keep mine at a very healthy low level.
Low level.
Well, look, enjoy the cycle down to Clonakilty later on.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks.
If you make it, we'll see you hopefully maybe next week at some point. I'm sure.
I believe I'm coming in again. Yeah.
Very good. Thanks, Risteard. Thanks a lot for that.
Thanks, Adrian.
And Kenny for the minute as well. We are going to start to talk some GAA in just a few minutes. Billy Joe Padden is going to join us on the line. We're going to preview the weekend's football qualifiers. So that is on the way. But before all of that, it's been a busy week for Kildare and the Kildare footballers and for the county board. So during the week, we got the take of Dahi Regan on the Battle of Newbridge.
It's been a PR disaster for the GAA this week. It's been a bad week for the GAA, but I have to say a huge admiration for Kildare and the way they handled it. I mean, at the end of the day, how must Tyrone and Cavan feel all of a sudden that, well, it's not going ahead. So it seems like very much they were the paupers in this whole thing, that it was felt that there was no point in playing them in Croke Park. So, yeah, bad week for the GAA, bad week PR-wise for the GAA, and it's something they're going to have to look at it, and it goes back to what Mike Duggan said on RT not so long ago, you know, about the introduction of Sky. I mean, the GAA is a massive commercial entity. There's no point in saying otherwise. And for the GAA to say that it's not driven by money, I just can't buy that or believe it, because if you're a huge commercial entity, you've got to try and make money. But you see, they're reticent to come out and say that they are because of the amateur ethos. So there's a lot of contradiction going on in our association at the moment. And I think they have a difficulty in that you have what to me is an elitist representative body in the GPA that looks after a select few when you consider everyone that plays the games. And you've got a club body that's really getting no recognition whatsoever. I'd much prefer to see the GPA look to represent all our players, because to me, they do a good job for the guys that they have on their books. But you could argue it is elitist. So there's a lot going to unfold from this over the next, I would say, year or two as to where we are going with our association, because our games are still very good. But from a hierarchical point of view, I think that we need a lot of self-introspection.
All right, 5 to 9 on this Friday morning. Dahi Regan's stake there on the Battle of Newbridge. Billy Joe Padden in just a second. A couple of comments to get to before we do that. On Facebook, Adrian Brennan just sends us 3 laughing emojis, so I'm going to take that he's enjoying the show today.
Laughing at 3 of us anyway.
A wave from Shane Murphy. Good morning to you, Shane. How are you getting on? One from Greg Clark here, who says Kenny made mincemeat of that sandwich in the car park outside the pub before kick-off. He attacked it better than the England attacked the Belgians.
Went into the pub where I went to watch the game with Dan, some family. Got there a little bit early. I hadn't eaten because I've flown over from the UK, so got the train up. I thought I'll get in and get a bit of grub. Went in, asked for the menu. No menu. No food in the pub.
Oh, you're kidding me?
That's very unusual,
so
isn't it?
You had to nip out, grab a sambo, get it in.
No, but I went there. I went to the chipper. There was a chipper outside, but I didn't think it was as traditional. You know, one of these chippers, it looked a bit kind of your kebabs, not your traditional fish and chip, chunky chip numbers. So I said, no, I'm not gambling. So I went into the Spar, but they closed the deli, just closed the deli section. So I had to go to the, which wasn't
not ideal.
It wasn't great.
Fourth option right there.
But my man made up later when I got home. I had a coffee slice waiting for me.
Ah, beautiful.
Quarter to 12 last night.
Quarter to stock up on the French fancies and the coffee slices when Kenny's home.
Quarter to 12 last night I was tucking into a coffee slice to a cup of tea with my
No better thing to do, quarter to 12.
Peter Scully says, morning lads from sunny Rome. Great to see England have gone away from the one game at a time tactic and decided to hire the open top bus already. Heard the trophy will be in selected Supermax around Ireland as part of Brexit discussions, which is a pretty good take from him. And Ben Gibson, good morning to you, Ben, who says he's just here to see how the latest Facebook like icons animate on the live screen. So we'll take all comers, Kenny. I appreciate your confused face there. I too am a little bit confused about what's going on. But let's not overly concern ourselves about that and just say good morning to you, Ben. Right, good morning, Billy Joe Padden. How's it going?
Very good, lads. Good morning to you too.
So we had Dahi Regan's take there, obviously, in the Battle of Newbridge. It sort of dominated most of the conversation this week as to where the game was going to go ahead. It's finally been decided that it will be at St Conleth's Park. It looks as if, from one report I read this morning, that Mayo fans are going to bizarrely outnumber Kildare fans by 3-1. So just as an opener, I just wondered if, how riled up, I suppose, are Kildare going to be by this? Obviously, Mayo are without a couple of key players. Is there some sort of a levelling of the playing field here, do you think?
I think so. I think maybe some of the Kildare fans won't be as jubilant in the last couple of days when they realise how difficult it's going to be for them to get hold of a ticket to get in and see the game. And I think also with the way that they've got behind their team, I think there'll be a bit of pressure coming on those players that they have to put in a performance because the Kildare County Board, the management have been behind their idea of the game being in Newbridge from the very start. So it's really going to come up to the players to put in a performance, and it's something they haven't really done. I think they lost all their 4 league games in Newbridge in the National League. They've got a couple of wins now after the horrific defeat to Carlow. But the funny thing about it for me in Newbridge is I think one of the reasons they wanted to play Mayo in Newbridge is Mayo are so used to playing in Croke Park, and it doesn't suit them to play in the smaller pitch. But I don't necessarily think that playing on the smaller pitch suits Kildare either.
Yeah, that's a bizarre sort of confluence of events. What does it mean on the day is what my next question. I wonder how all that plays out.
I think that you're going to see a reaction from the Kildare players. I think they have a lot of talent. I think they should be better than what they are. But I still see that Mayo, the experience, and they showed that last week against Tipperary, that even when they were pressurised and put in a tricky situation, that even though they got a lucky goal, they finished really, really strongly. And I expect the game to follow a similar path, that Mayo will be strong enough throughout the full 70 minutes. In saying that, the Kildare will have periods dominance, and if they really capitalise on those, they could put Mayo in a very tricky situation. But I still...
Sorry, Billy Joe,
I still think that Mayo will be able to come out with the right result in the end.
I was just going to ask, what would your take be on the midfield situation at Mayo? Who do you start at 8 and 9?
Well, I think Aidan O'Shea, whether he starts at 11 or starts at 8 9, he will do a lot of midfield things. He will be there jumping for Kildare kickouts and jumping for Mayo kickouts, but he will be the only big man I expect him to play. Diarmuid O'Connor will play in that area of the field. Jason Doherty, Kevin McLaughlin will play out there, and it's going to be very important for Mayo, for those players, that they're very good on breaks and they're aggressive on the high ball, particularly on Kildare's kick-out. Because with most of Mayo's kick-outs in the last number of games, they've gone short anyway and tried to run it up the field. But it's going to be absolutely important for Mayo that they don't get dominated physically in that area by Kildare, because when you look at the Kildare team, you have, Tommy Mulick, you have the Cribbins, all big, strong athletes. Paddy Brophy can spend time out there, another big man who's good over his head. So it's going to be absolutely vital for some of those smaller Mayo players that they're able to knock the ball down. And then that whoever finds themselves in that area, whether half backs, half forwards, that they're really aggressive on the break to get their hands on the ball, because things will take care of itself for Mayo if they can get enough possession in that area.
So, like that aggression on the ball, or that kind of running game from a Mayo point of view, it almost doesn't matter then who slots in. Is that your take on it, that whoever comes in, that ultimately it'll be the sort of same game plan either way?
Yeah, the only way I see Mayo getting hurt from this is if Kildare go really long with their kickouts and dominate with winning clean possession and are good on the breaks. Kildare should try and push up on the Mayo kickout and force David Clark to kick the ball long, because it should play into the Kildare hands. It remains to be seen whether they'll do that. I think it would be the right tactic. But for me, if Mayo are aggressive and make sure that ball is not caught cleanly, well, then it'll all come down to who's the hungrier team on the breaks. And if Mayo are the hungrier teams on the break, it doesn't make a difference. Mayo will have 7 or 8 ball players in that middle third that will be able to defend as a unit and attack as a unit. I'm talking about players like Jason Doherty, Lee Keegan, Colin Boyle, Kevin McLaughlin, Diarmuid O'Connor, all these players, Stephen Cohen, even Cian Hanley if he comes off the bench. They're all good athletes that can both attack and defend. And if they can get enough possession, well, then that'll be the area of strength that Mayo will need to win the game.
Just on the kickouts, the evidence of the Tipperary game obviously was that Mayo went, the vast majority of kickouts went short, and I think 100% of the kickouts were won, actually. I think was the stat from Mayo point of view from that game. So obviously if you're Cian O'Neill, you're looking at that and you're thinking, like you rightly say, we're going to push out on them. Like in that context, if Kildare or whoever decide to push out on that Mayo kick-out, is there any way about getting around that other than just to go a bit longer with it? Is that just a solution?
Well, I think if you were playing this game in Croke Park or Thurles in the big wide open spaces, I think David Clark would still get a number of short kickouts away out to his players, because I think that you'll see the likes of Kevin McLaughlin and Jason Doherty come from that half forward position into those areas to make themselves available for kickouts. It's just going to be so much more difficult in Newbridge because the pitch is so much smaller and tighter. So Mayo will be forced, if Kildare pressurise them, if they have the courage to do that, into going long. And that's where Aidan O'Shea will come into, I suppose, prominence, because he'll have to be very dominant for Mayo in that area, like he was in many of the qualifier games last year, particularly against Cork and Clare, in tight games for Mayo, Derry, where he was very good under the high ball. And they'll need him to be that way again, because they've no one else. Shamie O'Shea and Tom Parsons are not available.
And like on that as well, that kind of feeds into the idea about depth in the Mayo squad. And to be fair, even prior to the injuries, Billy Joe, it was a conversation we were having. We were wondering, do they have enough on the bench, particularly in the forwards, to take Mayo deep into the championship again this year? Do you feel that we're reading a little bit too much into last year, thinking to ourselves they'll be okay in the end, or do you feel that they actually will be okay in the end, that they will manage to negotiate whatever happens over the next 2 rounds of the qualifiers to result in a Super 8's appearance?
Well, I'm not sure. I think it still remains to be seen. I think that in a sort of a perverse way, losing the 2 midfielders might force Mayo into playing this sort of all-out running game with the likes of Diarmuid O'Connor in midfield, with some of the new players that have come into the squad and made an impact just this season. Like Cian Hanley, back from Australia, is a really fine athlete, will play in that middle third area. He's made an impact in the last couple of games he's played. So you might see a change of tactics where Mayo would just have no other choice but to play this running game. But I think Mayo ultimately will rely on those experienced players. Lee Keegan has come back into the team, Aidan O'Shea, Cillian O'Connor, how far they will take them. But at the same time, you've seen nothing but positive stuff from the likes of Owen O'Donoghue, Cian Hanley and James Durkin over the last number of weeks, that they have come in and added something to this squad that maybe Mayo weren't getting this time last year. So if they continue their progress, albeit they'll have to show a steep arc of improvement over the next couple of games, but if they do that, who knows where Mayo will progress to throughout the Super 8s, because as we know, we've seen this team improve week on week through the qualifiers in the past.
Yeah, it's hard to know, isn't it? Oh, in a lot of ways, like the some shades of 2017 almost about this to a degree, the kind of, losing in Connacht, bit of a run through the qualifiers and kind of get that momentum going. The only slight counterpoint, obviously, to all of that is that a couple of key players gone obviously now, and actually how they react to that almost is the biggest question for Mayo this weekend, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to call, and it's hard to say that it is definitely going to be like 2017, and the fact that there was so many crazy moments that happened in their qualifier run last night. They should have been dumped out of the qualifiers 2 or 3 times last summer, and to say, like, of course that adds reserve to the experience, but it's already a bloody experienced team, and they've lost 2 of the lads that went through that mountain last year, and ultimately, as Billy Joe was saying there, like the depth is going to be the key thing over the next few weeks.
Yeah, what do you think, Billy Joe? That point about, am I stretching that to say that there might be shades of 2017 here, like the path is so far similar enough?
I think so, yeah, but I think it's so new. The Super 8s will be so new. Whoever gets there, that it's going to be, you're going to be playing high quality opposition, and you can afford to maybe lose a game. And I think in many ways it'll be which team manages those 3 games the best, like you've seen in the World Cup. You know, you can't take a defeat too seriously. You still have an opportunity to react and improve from that. And it remains to be seen what Mayo have the mental strength to take 2 defeats and still go on and find themselves in an All-Ireland semi-final. And again, we don't know what sort of group. There could be a group of death could come out of this with 2 provincial winners, and then, you know, you could have Mayo and Tyrone in it, depending on the draw goes, and that would just make it very difficult anyway. So I think we won't really know who's a contender outside of Dublin and Kerry. We're a couple of games into the Super 8s.
Yeah, the line is not great. We'll keep going with it for the second and see how it holds up. You've just mentioned Mayo being involved in the next phase, and you've mentioned Tyrone being in the next phase, so I'm assuming that's the way you're going with all of that. And I don't know how much of a shaker given Cavan here, given that the 2 players were obviously cleared, I think, last night from their previous red cards.
Yeah, well, I saw that last night. I think that obviously changes their focus a little bit. I think they would have been very demoralised going into that game without them. I think McVitie in particular is a very important player for them, and that he's so versatile in that forward line, and he can get scores, and he's a good possession footballer as well, gets involved, gets loads of, makes an impact on the game. So it's a huge boost to have them back. But I think this is the stage for Tyrone where you're just going to absolutely have to see some of these leaders step up and take this team by the scruff of the neck. You know, Conor McCalliskey, nobody's been talking about him. He's been one of the best forwards in the championship so far, even in the losing effort to Monaghan. He was good again against Carlow and Meath in the qualifiers so far. So they'll be looking for another big game from him. And then it's down to Peter Hart and Matty Donnelly. If they can, show the consistency of high performance that we've only seen in flashes in the past, well then I think Tyrone will be a team to be reckoned with. But if we don't get that consistency out of them, I think it's going to be difficult for Tyrone. But in that game, I think that you'll see Tyrone be solid enough at the back, be aggressive enough in the middle of the field, that in a very cagey game against Cavan, because Cavan will have loads of men back, that I think they'll kick their feet and be able to get enough scores to win that game.
Armagh, Clare, is it a sort of a case of shutting down Rory Grugan here and shutting down Armagh? And if so, how do you go about that?
I think, again, like in the Mayo game, I think the middle of the field will be particularly important for both teams. Clare are strong in that area of the field. They're a team that plays very well with forward momentum, whereas Armagh are so streaky. They can play brilliant for 20 minutes and then be totally out of it for 20 minutes, like you saw, like a real poor performance against Fermanagh in the league. But Rory Gugan, is back in the team. He missed a lot of football earlier on. He's the captain. He's the leader. He's a very intelligent footballer. Can get scores, can kick frees, can also go back deep and play make as well. So if he has a big impact on the game, and if they're aggressive enough and solid enough around the middle of the field to deny Clare some possession, well then I think the home advantage will suit. Be in Armagh's favour, and it'll be enough for them to get through that one.
Overall, Billy Joe, just kind of looking at this weekend, looking ahead to the draw on Monday, it is a really exciting time, and you mentioned a potential of a group of death. I think it's almost a concrete fact at this point that we will have a group of death unless we get some massive shocks, because you look at Mayo, Tyrone and Monaghan's perspective now going into that draw on Monday, assuming they win, and all of those teams, bar the exception of Monaghan, or bar the exception of Roscommon rather, they would be looked at as far inferior opposition to those 3 teams, and all those 3 teams progress to the Super 8s, and suddenly we've got 7 top class teams and 1 wild card, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so. The team will see it as this weekend has been the absolute key weekend. They'll be delighted Tyrone and Mayo and Monaghan to have avoided each other thus far, but it still has to be done. I suppose you don't know suspensions or injuries, what happens, and you have to get over this game this weekend. But you're right, and it will come down to the strength of the squad in the Super 8s and how much these teams have left in the tank come the Super 8s. I think the positive thing for Monaghan is that they've had such an easy run that it really has been just like a couple of weeks of training with a couple of games at the end where they've never really been in doubt. Tyrone had a more difficult game against Meath. Remains to be seen what happens with Mayo against Kildare. I'm expecting a tough game, but you would expect Monaghan away to Leitrim to again find themselves in pretty good shape after an easy win. And then they'll look at the draw as you rightly described, probably thinking any of the 3 out of 4 apart from Roscommon would suit them.
All right, Billy Joe, live, I'm assuming, from sunny Navan. Thanks a million for taking the call this morning.
Thanks, no problem, lads.
Cheers, Billy Joe Padden on the line there ahead of the weekend's games. Martin Hines on Facebook, good morning to you. Martin says, it's like watching Home Improvement with just the top of Billy's head. Remember that show? Tim
great
the
show.
Toolman Taylor, wasn't that him?
Great show.
Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yeah,
great show, wasn't it? It was really good.
Fantastic, yeah.
Slightly bizarre. There was a few little a little bit left field, if I remember rightly. It was the neighbour. Remember the neighbour next door? You could only see the top. That was it.
You could always almost just his nose just above it. Yeah.
As Martin points out in a comment after that, fixed now. He's just giving us a general update on what's going on. What else have we got going on here? Kevin Sweeney gives us a thumbs up. Good morning to you. And Dahi has the ironing done, I see, says Emma Keane. Which was not something I picked up on. He must have had the ironing up in the background. These Skypes, Kenny, you don't know what you see in the background. What's going on here?
I thought he was at work there.
Was he?
Unless he brings his ironing to do at work or something.
Could do. 11 minutes past 9 of this Friday morning. Keep your comments coming into us. We're going to change tack just ever so slightly now. Niall McGrath, off the balls, Niall McGrath documented the MMA fighter Rhys Skeletor McKee's final weight cut before his BAMA title bout last night. He lost 11 pounds in 24 hours. The full piece is up on our YouTube channel. It's about 26 minutes or thereabouts and well worth checking out. I can tell you, it's an eye-opening watch. And here's a taster.
Rhys, you're feeling good, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back in for more?
Skeletor's starting to come. I have the 5 minutes in me, so might as well keep pushing when the energy's good and see what we got off. But yeah, I'm feeling good, man. Good spirits, and the team's happy, so I'm happy.
Is that, half the battle, the mental side?
Oh, but more than half. More than half the battle, this mindset that I'm transferred over to the fight. If I was to break now, how can you not expect me to break the fight? It's all about an unbreakable mindset.
He'll sleep tonight, maybe wake up about 1:60 tomorrow morning. But he needs to be championship 155, cut the £5 in the morning. Sometimes it's good to give the body a wee rest and in the morning time you're like, I don't know if I can do this, but once you get in there and get going, you're ready to get it done. Once you get
Rhys 161. Happy with that for the night's work?
Yeah, man. It wasn't. I'm not hard pushed here. It was a good cut. It wasn't hard. So I've got plenty in the tank for tomorrow. So go back to the hotel, rest up, and finish in the morning.
Skeletor is rising.
Hard to get up and maybe we're still cutting weight, so the ability to bring stuff in and use it and trust it too, it's hard to do, but we get there every time.
As you mentioned, you possibly want to go up to 170. Is that maybe the reason why you want to be maybe a little bit more responsible about what you're doing to your body in terms of weight cutting?
Yeah, I always feel I've had my head screwed on and stuff like my health, and I'll always put my health first. And the day where I feel 155 is taking years off my life, and down the line, then that's not good enough for me. I'll need to go up. So I think fighters really need to weigh up the scales, and see, can I fight at that weight and can I be healthy at that weight? And that's really where it lies.
Yeah, that was Niall McGrath's mini doc. It's up on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/off the ball. Subscribe and like and do all of that kind of stuff, and we'll let you know whenever we're live, which we are a little bit later today. World Cup Daily from 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock.
And even though there's no football to talk about, I'm sure there'll be...
There is football to talk about. There was football last night, there's football tomorrow.
Football tomorrow, it's a fair point. Who
scheduled
these things? Well, look at it, League of Ireland Advocate.
I'll be up Dalymount Park tonight. I'm going to go up have a look at Bows tonight.
You're a regular up at Dalymount.
Well, it's Dundalk Cork tonight.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, Dundalk Cork tonight, isn't it?
Right.
Ardio Park, huge game. Right. Bloody hell, Adrian.
And the hurling show as well from 1 o'clock. So all of that good stuff to come. But do check out that. I watched that McKee fight last night, and he ended up getting beaten actually, but it was a great fight. I don't know. I'm not really a mad MMA fan. I haven't been.
No, I don't.
I'd watched the documentary, so it piqued my interest enough that I ended up looking at it last night. And yeah, it was pretty brutal. And he never really managed to get sort of foothold. You watch much MMA?
Well, the big
millennials, all
the big UFC events, really, to be honest.
BAMA, you're saying BAMA is not a big UFC event? I think that's fair.
It's clearly not a UFC event. So it's literally a different organisation.
MMA. Whatever. One of the stories we wanted to talk about was Mark Halsey. I don't know if people are aware of this story yesterday, but he was on a panel on CNN discussing the World Cup, and he had obviously teed up the presenter beforehand. He had told her about this incident and then he went ahead to sort of say it on air, where during the course of his time refereeing in the Premier League, Mark Halsey, a player came up to him during a game and said, "Listen, Mark, could you book me? Because I have a big derby game coming up and I need to get a booking so I can serve the suspension." And actually, I think we've got the clip. Let it speak for itself here.
Have you ever had a prospect on the pitch where a player has tried to get booked whilst you've been refereeing a game?
Now you are putting me on the spot, aren't you? You really are. You enjoy that question.
I am enjoying that question.
The answer, honestly, yes, I have.
Oh.
I have had a player ask me, would I caution him? Because they were played on the Saturday. They were playing on Saturday. They had a midweek game, and then on the following Saturday they had a massive derby game. And I was politely asked, would I caution him?
And did you?
Yes, I did. I asked him politely. I said, "Listen, when I give a decision against you next time, because I knew it'd happen, because he was always getting cautioned anyway, just boot that ball 50 yards down the other end, and I can then caution you for dissent by action."
Yeah.
So, and he thanked me after the game. Well, no names.
Well,
I'm not going to tell you.
Perhaps no longer refereeing the game. You can tell us that.
What the hell is he doing?
It's pretty outrageous. That's outrageous, I think.
Isn't it?
And it's embarrassing. It's actually embarrassing himself. It's a really odd story, because what a player would even... It's so easy to get yourself a booking. He's mentioned it there. Kick the ball away. What would a player even go and ask
it's just bizarre,
for the yellow card to begin with? Because that's happened a lot of time. Countless times over the years, players get themselves booked for loads of different reasons.
You could League last season, this season just gone. I can't remember who it was, but somebody outrageously trying to get themselves booked. But to go up to the referee and go,
that's stupidity in itself from the player. But then him, like, to actually to entertain it, like, in the manner which he did, and then to come out publicly here and kind of...
It was almost like a bravado, a bit of a smugness about, mates with this player, and like...
Yeah, pretty embarrassing. Just embarrassed himself.
Like, it's not just Mike Dean, who is a Premier League referee that happens to have a gigantic ego. Clearly, Mark Halsey also has a gigantic ego.
Mark Lattenberg would be another one that is, but I mean, I think there's another level
This is the problem now. Referees, media, they coming on, he's got to make a mark, you know what I mean? Oh, how am I going to stand out from the crowd? Like draw a bit of attention to myself, and let's say something kind of controversial, but the wrong thing. Yeah, very bizarre.
Like his standing in the game has fallen through the floor now after that.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's what I'm saying. He's killed him. I don't think there's any coming back from that. Like, he'd find it very difficult, any type of gig now back in the UK. I would have thought off the back of that.
Definitely, because he's just there at the end. He's like, no names, because he doesn't want to ruin the footballer's career. But no, he's just ruined his own career.
I think you could. It wouldn't take a huge amount of journalism, I think, to find out actually who even he's talking about.
Yeah, refereeing.
His next interview will probably tell you. He'll probably name names. Top it up. But one of the referees has always been criticised. But in the UK, it's always been said, and players' managers have always said it. By and large, honesty in terms of the referees. I'd never doubt the honesty and the integrity of the referees, as good and as bad as they are, and the criticism we'd have, they'd never question that. So, by coming out and admitting to that,
just bizarre.
Yeah.
Couple of things we wanted to touch on. The VAR being one of them that we've had excited conversations about, Kenny, you and I think, over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I've got to be honest with you now.
Graham Souness Graham Souness was essentially what you were coming from the point of, I don't agree with VAR, it's going to ruin the game, this is not a good thing.
I don't know how it's going to change the game. Yeah, I didn't like how it was going to change the game.
He was in the same camp, and he's now saying, actually, I think it's improving the game. This is the example we have is Davison Sanchez from the game yesterday, and the referee initially, straight away, you can see the top picture there. The still image shows it very clearly, but in real time, you're looking at it going, actually, that's a penalty, and which he awarded. Then he goes to VAR, looks back at it, sees the contact with the ball, and reverses his decision and says no penalty.
Well, I haven't seen. I've watched it a few. I just saw it for this morning for the first time. I think it's a penalty. I think there's contact with the left. Yeah, from a technical point of view, actually tackling with your, I've done it myself. Tackling with your right leg there is the wrong decision. Should be sliding in and actually hooking that ball away with his left foot. But he's predominantly right foot, so no surprise he's leading with his right leg.
Have a look there. He gets contact with the ball first, though.
I don't think that's. Oh yeah, there is a little bit of contact. But the problem with the ruling is, right, so we had this ruling before the competition in terms of it would only be referred back to the referee if they felt there was a clear mistake that had been made, the people, the VAR. So now they're asking referees to review the decision, but in effect they're not. Basically what they're saying to the referee is, you've made a mistake, go and rectify it and change the decision. So if the referee's being human, when they're being asked, go and have a look at this, in their minds they're saying, I've made a mistake here. I'm being told to go over there and take back my decision. And of all the times referees have been asked to go over, I don't remember, maybe there's been one when a referee has stood
by the was during the week.
Every other one, I can guarantee you the referee's walking over to that screen thinking, I'm going to change my mind.
But is that not actually just a function of... So that actually isn't necessarily a problem. That's just a function of the fact that the referee is making a call in an instant, and that actually just proves how difficult it is to make the call in the instant, because the proof of the actual decision should be the decision that he's reviewed.
So what we're kidding ourselves that the referee's been asked to have a look at. He's not been asked. He's been told, reverse your decision. You've made the wrong decision.
And is that not fair enough?
And it's not some of the decisions that aren't like obvious mistakes. They're still open to it.
It's either
a glaring error.
A glaring or something you may have missed. They're the two sort of opportunities to refer back to VAR. But you're right. I'm sure they've got somebody in the ear going, actually, either not sure about that or bad call. Let's go and have a look. But so ultimately, the right decision is probably.
I think you're right. I think in quite a number of instances I've seen, they ultimately have come and made invariably the right decision. I'm thinking back to the South Korea game, the first goal, which was disallowed originally by the linesman who put up his flag. But linesman now, for me, natural consequences of what's happening now. If I'm a linesman and the games now, I'm not putting up my flag. I'm just never putting up my flag.
Because of the kind of go back.
Yeah, because of the consequence. Rather just leave me flag and let them referee it up in the VAR. This is a natural consequence in terms of where it's going to go. So, but get back to South Korea. They arrived at the right decision, but they went to the side. And for me, visually looking at it, just experiencing it, even in the living room watching the game, the player stood in the centre circle, hands on hips, waiting. The referee going over, looking at the screen. That little bit of an X Factor thing coming onto the pitch. The drama of the VAR.
It's drama.
Yeah, but I don't enjoy it.
You don't enjoy that?
No, I don't enjoy that. That's real. I find that really odd. Right. I find that really odd to take away that kind of natural, spontaneous kind of celebration when the goal scored, to cut that short and say, no, park that celebration. We're going to go and have a look at the screen, and 45 seconds later I'm going to give you the go-ahead
he's going to make
to go and celebrate the goal. It is, but I'm not saying they're not getting the decisions right. I think they will get more decisions right, but it's a natural consequence of it and how it's kind of changed the dynamic of the game, just in terms of the emotion of the game, how I'm feeling watching it, and I'm generally not enjoying it.
To be fair, so pretty much all the decisions are being checked. So he doesn't actually go to the screen if he's made the correct decision. The only time when VAR will actually make a message into his ear is when the VAR room feels that there's a strong case for this decision to be overturned. That's why so many of them, bar the Mexican handball, was turned over. And so if a team is celebrating a goal, you can hear, the referee can hear in his ear, they're checking in VAR. The players don't know that. The player thinks the goal has stood.
Yeah.
And if there is a miscarriage of justice, that goal will be overturned. But there is no sort of postponement of the celebrations if the goal is correctly awarded. So it's a win-win-win there, no?
No, I think you're right. You will come to more clear-cut and better decisions. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think we've seen the end of it. This is going to muster them out. It's going to escalate. Even the attitude now, we're only going to look at like goal scoring up red cards and penalty kicks at the moment, like key decision-making moments during the game. You can see that broadening out as well as it goes on. And even the kind of what I found interesting, the Harry Kane, so kind of the big Harry Kane debate when he was like rugby tackled to the ground in the penalty box. Well, what's going on? Are they not? watching this, he's clearly been rugby tackled to the ground. Yeah, absolutely he was. But I was watching the replay of that, and in the foreground of that, you notice John Stones literally throws over one of the opposition players in the lead up as well, pushes him to the ground. Technically, that's a foul. So if potentially they had to give the penalty to Harry Kane for being rugby tackled to the ground, what's to stop the opposition team saying, well, hold on, well, what about there was another foul committed in the penalty, but one of our players was actually pushed to the ground. And while we're on that, have a look at the other player at the other end of the penalty box.
I think by and large they're more... Look, ultimately there will be instances like that, but for me you can't legislate for the few. You got to legislate for the 95% of the times where actually it is quite clear cut. I think it's been, I don't know, I'd be in your camp of, I'm actually enjoying it. I think it almost adds something.
Maybe there is a novelty element though, Adrian. Maybe we're all
I'm really not enjoying it. I take your point. They're getting a lot of more decisions right. I understand that, but I'm actually not enjoying the experience. It doesn't feel right to me.
The Harry Kane one, by the way, and I appreciate that we're like 3 weeks after the event here now, but I can't understand how people haven't discussed the fact that Harry Kane was pulling that player's arm into him. Like, that was a free out. And like, I
think the initial contact from the opposition player, but you're absolutely right. He's so clever that he actually pins him a little bit, his arm, and actually when he's falling, he pulls him to the ground, actually pulls him on top to really exalt. But I think maybe technically you could argue the initial foul was by the defender, but you're right. Very clever in terms of actually holding the player and actually dragging him down to the ground with him.
There's one other story we wanted to touch on, Owen. I don't know if you want to bring that to our viewers, the Serena Williams story that's been on Deadspin this week.
Yeah, well, exactly. A couple of days ago, Deadspin published an article on the website where they've got a tip from a reader actually who had overheard a conversation at an airport from a man who was flying to Florida, which is where the WTA is based, and this information came to light that the WTA and USADA had visited Serena Williams' house to collect a sample, and they left without collecting a sample. Why Serena didn't want to give a sample, well, we don't know, but what we do know from this conversation is that a conversation happened between Serena Williams and the head of the WTA, and then the WTA head put Serena Williams in touch with Travis Tigart, who is the head of USADA. Why the hell is Serena Williams having a conversation with the head of USADA after somebody comes to her house to collect a sample? Why she hasn't given the sample, I don't know. She complains about being tested a lot. She is tested a lot.
She's the most tested, it seems, from some of the figures that are here, that there was 5 tests already in 2018, and that isn't including that incident was on June the 14th where somebody turned up to her house.
She actually opened the door. She was present and spoke to the...
Yeah, there was no panic room in this house.
Yeah, somebody, she didn't open the door, somebody opened the door, but she wasn't there, so the person came in and said, well, we're here to test Serena, and they said, well, she's not here, and they said, well, we're just going to wait until she comes back. And then she never came back, and then eventually the tester had to head off.
Was it proved that she was in the premises or wasn't? We don't know.
We don't know.
Not enough information.
We don't know. Like, it might have been the old, the Mo Farah sort of ding, ding, ding on the door, and I didn't hear it. I was
his headphones.
I was doing something else, and my doorbell isn't great. I need to get a bit of volume, pump up the volume a little bit.
She basically claims it's unfair targeting of her, despite the fact that she's the most forefront tennis player in the world. And I guess is that there's kind of a moral question: should she be tested as much just because of fame and stuff like that?
Yeah,
but does that argument does it stand up? Is she the most tested female tennis player?
So they have some numbers here now. These are all actually American tennis players, most of whom I am happy to admit I've never heard of before, but there are players like Sloane Stephens, who is one of the highest ranked in the world. She's 4th ranked in the world. She was tested once. Venus Williams, who's ranked 9th, was tested twice. Madison Keys, who's ranked 10th, was tested once. So that's a bit of a flavour. A whole bunch of other American players who were much further down the ranks, who weren't tested at all. Like, I do wonder about the Simona Halep, Wozniacki, Muguruza players who are the top 3 in the world and how many times they've been tested by way of a comparison. But there are a whole range of factors as to why USADA might actively try and test somebody, right? That was kind of the thing from the piece on.
Yeah, but I think the most worrying aspect of this is the open line of dialogue between Steve Simon, the CEO of Women's Tennis Association, and the subsequent open line between Serena Williams and Travis Tigart. Like, on a completely separate level, I'm like, we had
Whose phone is that? Whose phone is that?
I really hope not. just the open line of dialogue between Serena and the powers that be. We've seen this in sport before. We've seen this very obvious other example of an athlete who had an open line to the chief of his sport. And that is not healthy. We're not putting these two situations in parallel whatsoever. That's not what I'm saying.
Because as pointed out in the article that she is, vocally, she's very pro sort of strict testing about it and all that stuff.
And she's never failed a test, Adrian.
She's never failed a test. Doesn't always actually like to get asked about it in press conferences either. No. That is one thing that is for absolute certain. But Sean Ingall's been on Twitter, and he's the Guardian journalist, pointing out that Galen Rupp, who's the American long distance runner, so Serena's saying, oh look, I've been tested for all these things, and why am I constantly being tested? Like, that would have been the 6th time this year. He's been tested over 20 times this year. So, like, I also think that if I'm a clean athlete and I'm pro clean athletics, then, or sport, then I'm actually just happy for you to come and test me whenever. I don't care. I'll actually tell the world. I'll tweet about while you're here going, hey, look at it, isn't this great news? I'm getting tested. Like, that's what I'll do. I won't be ringing the head of my organisation to go, stop, why is this constantly happening? And why is he getting it? He needs to go, listen, nothing to do with me, this is great, we want more of this stuff. Like, why is he getting involved?
Yeah, I take your point. Yeah, that immediate reaction is that, kind of, I'm being targeted here, I'm being tested more. That was kind of that bit of a self-defence. I must admit, that unnerves me a little bit. We heard a lot of it, actually, like you were saying, like in Mo Farah. I'm reading a lot about Mo Farah around that type of time, and it's just the reaction to it. The reaction to why always me, this type of thing, really kind of aggressive, that type of. And I must admit, when I listen to it, it does unnerve me a little bit, the old attitude. He does protest too much. Yeah. You know what I mean? You always
care. If you were clean, you wouldn't care.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit of an inconvenience. But I've been urine tested after. I remember being in West Ham after West Ham game, an evening game, and I was picked to go to be drug tested. Obviously, this is after the game when you would be kind of dehydrated. And I remember I went in. Julian Dix was in there as well, the both of us. It was very difficult. I made the mistake of trying to give a sample straight away. It was just hadn't had enough water in my body, so I was stuck there for about an hour after that. He was the same, and by the time he gave a sample, the lads, I remember Slaven Bilic actually coming in. He brought like some bottles of beer in for Julian Dixon, a bag of fags. have a cigarette. I was banging the Evians back. He was a couple of bottles of lager and like a fag in his hand. So yeah, a little bit of an inconvenience there, but that was directly after competition. That was physically a little bit coming off after the game. Wasn't ideal. But this is obviously our competition coming to your. Now, if you're in your house, you're chilled out and you're in your house. I wouldn't have thought, like you said, if your attitude is, the reputation of the sport, I'm a high-profile figure, I should be setting the right example. You would think the attitude should be a little bit different.
It's part of the T's and C's of your business.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's just the way it goes. So, there are a load of factors that so you said I've sort of given some detail about why they might particularly test somebody that's like... available resources, performance information, ranking data, sport and athlete-specific analysis, biological and longitudinal analysis. Not 100% sure what longitudinal analysis is. Injury information, injury profile, training periods, competition calendar, intelligence received concerning possible doping practices. So, there are a range of factors there.
Yeah, and ranking actually being one of them. So the point being, if you're towards the top end, there's a likelihood you're going to be more likely to be tested. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Fair enough. It's on Deadspin.com. Laura Wagner is the author. Definitely worth a read, worth checking out. And we've tweeted it from Off the Ball as well, so go along there and check it out. Kenny, it's been a pleasure having you in as always. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cheers, lads.
We didn't go too deep this morning. We were sort of just keep it on the level.
Yeah. It's all good.
Next time.
Bus home?
Not immediately, no. Did a little bit of ducking and diving around town before head out Daily Mount later.
When you're on the bus, just remember the etiquette, Kenny.
And stay off the back seat. Always
stay away from the back seat.
Why would you even go there in the first place?
No.
World Cup, thanks a million for coming in. World Cup Daily is coming your way. It's here at midday. Owen is going to be joined by...
Phil Egan.
Phil Egan.
Yeah, and we'll be crossing over to Moscow as well for
John is going to have some sleep.
John Duganovsky action and some Leon Blanche action as well.
Excellent. The hurling show coming your way from 1 o'clock. Shane Stapleton in the hot seat there to preview the Munster hurling final and plenty more as well coming up over the weekend. Off the Ball is back on the radio from 7 o'clock tonight, live across the weekend, and we'll see you here on OTB AM again on Monday morning. Good morning.
OTB AM. Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.